You're standing on a dusty plateau just outside ancient Memphis. The morning sun is climbing higher, and a man named Imhotep is staring at a row of flat stone tombs. Workers wait quietly behind him. Chisels rest on the ground. Nobody knows it yet, but the decision he's about to make will echo for thousands of years. Instead of building another ordinary tomb, he points upward. Stack another one, then another, then another. Think about that for a second. That single idea eventually inspires monuments on multiple continents, survives dozens of civilizations, and creates one of the most recognizable shapes on Earth. But why? Why did humans, separated by oceans and thousands of years, keep returning to the pyramid? Was it simply the easiest way to pile up stone, or was something much bigger happening? To answer that, we have to begin with one man standing in the Egyptian desert, because every great mystery starts with a single decision. Picture this. It's around 2630 BCE. The Nile has flooded its banks, farmers have temporarily left their fields, and King Djoser wants a tomb unlike anything Egypt has ever seen. Until now, kings have been buried beneath low rectangular structures called mastabas. They're impressive, but they don't dominate the landscape. Imhotep has another idea. Instead of spreading the tomb outward, he builds upward. One mastaba becomes two become three. Eventually, 6 massive stone platforms rise into the sky, creating what we now call the Step Pyramid of Saqqara. The structure climbs more than 60 meters into the desert air. To us, it looks familiar. To the people standing below it, it must have looked impossible. But here's where things get interesting. Imhotep wasn't just building higher, he was building meaning. Ancient Egyptians believed the world itself began when a sacred mound, the Benben, rose from the waters of chaos and became the first place touched by the sun. Suddenly, the pyramid isn't just architecture, it's creation frozen in stone. It's a staircase between earth and the heavens, which raises a bigger question. If symbolism explains the first pyramid, why did Egyptian kings keep changing the design? Researchers eventually discovered something surprising. The answer wasn't hidden in religion, it was hidden inside failure. A few generations later, another king arrives. His name is Sneferu. If Imhotep invented the pyramid, Sneferu became obsessed with perfecting it. His first major attempt at Meidum doesn't go according to plan. Parts of the outer casing collapse, leaving behind a strange tower surrounded by rubble. Most rulers would have stopped there. Sneferu builds another. This time at Dashur, his architects begin with sides rising at roughly 54 degrees. Halfway through construction, something changes. The angle suddenly becomes shallower, around 43 degrees, creating the famous bent pyramid. Stand in front of it today, and you can still see the exact moment ancient engineers changed their minds. Imagine building a skyscraper today and deciding halfway up to redesign the entire structure. That's essentially what happened. And then Sneferu tries again. His third attempt, the Red Pyramid, keeps the gentler angle from the very beginning. 3 pyramids, 1 king, an entire engineering textbook written in limestone. But that creates another mystery. Building 1 pyramid is astonishing. Building 3 is almost unimaginable. Where did all those workers come from? Most people picture exhausted slaves dragging stones through the desert. But that's not what archaeologists found. Picture a busy village near Giza. Bread comes out of enormous ovens. Beers poured into jars. Doctors set broken bones. Cattle are butchered by the hundreds. Young men joke while waiting for their next shift. This wasn't a prison camp. It was a community. Excavations at Hayat el Ghurab uncovered bakeries, workshops, cattle pens, sleeping quarters, and even graffiti left behind by the workers themselves. Some crews proudly called themselves the Friends of Khufu. Others chose names like the Drunks of Menkora. Think about that for a second. Those aren't the names of miserable prisoners. They're the names of teams proud enough to leave their signatures behind. So what made all this possible? The Nile. Every year, between roughly June and September, floodwaters covered Egypt's farmland. Farmers suddenly couldn't farm. Instead of wasting that labor, the Egyptian state redirected it. Flood season became building season. Nature itself became part of the construction schedule. But here's where the entire story changes. For centuries, historians could only guess how the pyramids were organized. Then, in 2013, researchers exploring ancient storage galleries at Wadi el-Jarf made an extraordinary discovery. At first, it looked like little more than old papyrus. Then someone started reading. The documents belonged to a man named Merer. He wasn't a king. He wasn't an architect. He was a middle-ranking official keeping an ordinary work diary. And that's exactly what made it extraordinary. Mera carefully recorded transporting fine white limestone across the Nile to a place called Akhet Khufu, the horizon of Khufu, the Great Pyramid itself. No myths, no legends, just daily logistics, boat schedules, crew assignments, harbor activity. Researchers weren't reading mythology. They were reading ancient project management. Suddenly, the Great Pyramid became something much more human. Thousands of ordinary people following carefully planned routines, moving one shipment after another. But Mera's diary raises another question. Why was Khufu's monument called the Horizon of Khufu? To answer that, we need to look at the pyramid itself. Its sides rise at approximately 51.84 degrees. That number wasn't random. Egyptian builders measured slopes using a system called the seked, carefully balancing height, stability, and appearance. The monument's base points toward true north, with an error of less than 3 arc minutes. That's astonishing precision for a structure completed around 4,500 years ago. But mathematics alone doesn't explain why civilizations kept choosing this shape. So let's leave Egypt. Imagine standing in Peru. No metal tools, no wheels, no pottery. Yet people at Corral are building stepped pyramids. Cross the ocean again. Now you're walking through Teotihuacan. Ahead of you rises the Pyramid of the Sun, built above a sacred cave and aligned with the movement of the sun across the landscape. Travel farther east. China. The first emperor rests beneath a gigantic earthen pyramid surrounded by an underground empire. Then south into Nubia. Dozens of slender pyramids rise from the desert at Meroe. Different languages, different gods, different histories, the same silhouette. At first, that doesn't make sense. Unless the pyramid solved a problem every civilization eventually faced. A pyramid is naturally stable. Every layer supports the next. Weight pushes downward instead of outward. You can stop construction almost anywhere and the structure remains secure. It's one of the simplest ways to build something enormous with stone. Engineering explains why pyramids worked, but it doesn't explain why people devoted decades of their lives to building them. Picture a worker standing beside Khufu's pyramid. His hands are covered in limestone dust. His crew begins pulling together. The ropes tighten. Someone starts singing. The block begins moving. He's not just building a tomb. He's helping create something his grandchildren will still see. Something travelers will recognize from miles away. Something that tells every visitor one simple message. Our people can do this. That's what the pyramid really became. A machine for turning labor into identity. Turning belief into architecture. Turning an entire civilization into something visible on the horizon. And maybe that's why the shape kept appearing across the ancient world. Not because these civilizations copied one another, but because they all reached the same realization. If you want people to believe something will last forever, first you have to build something that looks like it already has.